Thank you very much for coming here tonight. Jeneline, okay, that's great. Thank you for being here today and being in this conversation with me. So today I'm going to talk about community renewal and strengthening in the context of the provocateur leadership approach. The main reference for this conversation is my book Provocateurs, Not Philanthropists: Turning Good Intentions into Global Impact. I wrote the book in 2022, and that's still in the height of the pandemic. It was easing out at the time, but I wasn't able to really have a conversation with a lot of people about some of the contents and the principles and insights from the book. And this is now my chance to be able to share that, have a conversation, and dig deeper into what does that mean in in every sector in social development, especially here in Alberta and in Canada in as a whole. So I'm very happy to be here with you discussing this. To start off, I'd like you to think about who you are as a leader, or what do you want to, who, or what kind of leader would you want to be? Anyone that's do you think would be your exemplar, the examples that you have in terms of what kind of the leadership that you want to assume for yourself. I ask this because it's good to contextualize a conversation on leadership understanding, perspective, and the context with which we assume leadership in our various roles in our social development sector. I'm just putting this out to you, and these are some of the, I would say, top few leadership traits and styles that I see around and I always hear about. And not to judge any of them, but if you are this, then basically give me a shout out in the chat box if that's the kind of leader you are, or would you want to be, or maybe a different kind of leadership style or altogether, or leadership perspective altogether. So some of this would you would hear a lot, like servant leadership, empathetic, being adaptive, being selfless, being innovative, decisive, community oriented, impact oriented, collaborative, secured, ambidextrous. Ambidextrous meaning the left brain and the right brain coming together. So you have the creative and the logical side of the brain coming together, and they call it ambidextrous leadership. That's a new thing though. Charismatic, authentic. We hear that all the time. People centered, nonconformist, and so on and so forth. So there are many labels we hear about. And sometimes all of this also as well, we assume in ourselves. So I want you right now to look into yourself, think about for a few minutes, what kind of leader are you, or who you want to be, or what you assume to be, and who are your exemplars? Who are the people in your informal, formal, personal, career, professional life that you hold up high as an example of a leader that you want to be? So when I was 20, I have a sort of idea of what, a leader should be. And growing up in the sector, I assumed that, hey, I want to be like that when I'm in that stage. But right now at 40, I have a very different understanding of leadership. And I have a different understanding of my exemplars as well. So things have changed throughout. And I believe as you grow and evolve and mature, and you have a lot of life experiences, it also allows you to have a more defined, more specific understanding of who you want to be as a leader, what kind of leader would you want to be, and who are your exemplars. So like just quickly in a chat box without much judgment to that. Yes, collaborative, thank you. Narrative, empathetic. Yeah. Relational, yes, we're rooted in relationship. This is the mini summit for that. Rooted in relationship. We are relational. Absolutely. Authentic. I know authentic has been a word that's been peddled around and over abused and misused a lot of times. But if it's really for you, I would say go for it. We want to be as real and as authentic as much as we can as a leader. Collaborative and adaptive. Basically, in the context of a moving, dynamic world that we live in, we cannot not be collaborative and adaptive and in that way. Empathetic, collaborative, authentic. I love the leadership style of Robin Wall Kimmerer. Yes, and we don't know Robin, but I guess if you can send us a link of who she is and what kind of style would that would be awesome. Supportive and resourceful. Yes. It's all part of how you really put together the assets that within you to really make sure that all your, goals are achieved and that you are, you are being practical about your, being resourceful about managing those assets that you have. So in a way, we already have that in us, the understanding of what leadership is, just the basic understanding. Now we go deeper to what my approach is and how it fits with all of these things that we already know. We have sort of like an innate a basic understanding of leadership and how we embody it. So in my just my personal journey, I was born, raised, and educated in the Philippines. Half of my work is it was in the Philippines. I grew up in the social development sector, and one of the many things the reasons why I wrote the book is because when I was growing up in that sector, I really didn't have a lot of leadership support, and that was the missing piece in my development, and that is across a lot of organizations. I would say systemic wise, it was a big issue at the time, and a lot of us were young people were disillusioned. We can't perform well. We don't have support. We don't have resourcing. We don't have people really backing us up and sponsoring our growth. So that was such a big issue back then. And as I look back now at this stage when I'm here in Canada, and also looking at the social development spectrum, the whole sector, I noticed that we still need this conversation around building the next generation of leaders and what does it look like, what investments we should need, what conversations we should have with the next generation, that we are all in line with all of this. um, and so far my that has been one of the big reasons why I wrote the book. And the second thing is that if you look at the scholarship of leadership, especially for the 21st century, it's been an evolving scholarship. And yet, just one thing I noticed, that it's all still stilted to this all too perfect human being, that you have to be all of this. There's a certain myths and mythologies around effective leaders that until now, it distracts real effective leaders from doing their work because these myths are being peddled out, and without really scrutinizing them and critiquing them and really understanding what does it mean, you will end up doing a lot of things that you're not supposed to do. You will end up really not being effective, and at the same time um you're eroding your own integrity, you're eroding your own value system, you're eroding your own effectiveness. So that's why I when I wrote the book, I first pointed out that the myths are there and we need to really define them and tease them out and say that no, we want to be we don't want these myths within us. We don't want these myths perpetrated by us and in our environment. So what are these myths? That you have to be all that perfect, and sometimes it says positional power rules that you can have it all. And some people say, no, you can't have it all. You have to pick a lane. It's lonely at the top. They would say that you won't have friends because you're the leader, and that you'll have to have a cadre of trusted advisors that you support, and you don't have nobody else's to really discuss some of these sensitive issues with others because you are that leader. You are that person in charge of everything. Some say it's not for everyone, so don't even dare. Don't even, take some role or some opportunity, and because it's not for you. It's only for those certain people who have this intellect or intelligence or charisma, or they're born with it. It's still there. It's still being peddled around in many people's faces, especially in social media, and that disinformation really corrupts a lot of people. Taking leadership as a ticket to personal glory, yes, there's still self-interested actors doing this. Don't hog the limelight, share it with others. There's this sort of allergy to taking recognition and credit where credit is due. But at the same time, yes, sharing is important, that you share, you delegate. When you delegate power and you delegate responsibility, you share credit for that. And that is important as a leader and as a manager. Charisma is very important. Yes, there's a part of charisma. There's a part of in terms of the physical attractiveness of a leader, but it's not all about that. Mostly, it's not about charisma. You're too young, you're too old, you're not an expert. I've been told I'm too young when I was 20, too young but accomplished, and now it's too old, but a little bit relevant. Not an expert or too much an expert that you can't be relatable. So there's many criticisms around that. And even if you're not a leader, but you're in a public space, you'll get something. You'll get something of that sort of like criticism or the mythologies being peddled around, and people lap up to it, and that's sad that still at this date, as at this day, people have become subsumed under those mythologies. You can add on to this, and I bet you have personally have confronted some of this yourself. So what does in the context of the leadership, my experiences and in review of the scholarship, I know that there's something missing, especially in social development sector, because we can be empathetic, we can be relational, we can be collaborative, yes, but our industry is also different. Unlike any business or a corporation or a government or a multinational institution, we're very different from all those organizations that have a very different understanding of leadership in the context of a business dynamics. But in social development, I noticed that there is a certain gap that we can fill, and that is through the provocateur leadership approach. What is the provocateur leadership approach? From the word provocateur, which is to stir up for good. I'm reclaiming the word. I'm basically consciously reclaiming the word provocateur, because I know in many conversations with a lot of people, they would say, I hate that word. That's a very bad word. That's destructive, it's polarizing, it's conflict ridden. You're saying that, you're not a team player and everything like that. So I'm reclaiming that word because words have power. And if we reclaim the word and take the meaning back and say, we provoke it for good, we stir up for good, then we can do great things. Then we have better results. So we can improve what's going on in our industry, in our sector, in our community. So I'm reclaiming the word provocateur-leadership to revamp the old paradigms of leadership and the myths surrounding effective leaders. So what is it basically, Maiden? Well, it's all about a few things. One, it's transformational. As what some of you have said, you're a transformational leader. So what does it mean? You're a facilitator. You're not a savior. You're not a patron. You're not a fixer. You're not a philanthropist. You're not the fountain of intellect. You're not a fountain of answers and solutions. You're not. And you don't have all the answers. And that's basically the most humility data point for all of us, is that we don't have all the answers. We're facilitating change. And all of us here in this room is, I believe, transformational agents. And that is a fact in terms of provoking for good, or being a provocateur for good. Next is the catalyst. A catalyst is sort of like, you're not really doing the work. It's more the influence. That's what leaders are made. You are influencing for good, and you're thinking about working with collaborators to think differently and act innovatively. If you have done that for quite a bit, even 1%, I think you've made a great effort already. You've made a great impact already. You're also grounded and contextual, in a sense that you look at your sector, you look at what's going on, the issues, the challenges, not just with the social issues you're addressing, but how people network, how movements form, grow, and decline, and resuscitate and emerge. And you think about that in the context of all these best practices that seemed to be really good in those days, in the early days. But now look at ask the right questions. What else can we do? What we can improve? How we can innovate? How we can build that better? And how we can address some of these issues that that seem to polarize us more than unite us, and how we can reclaim those in a way that, we create new models of working, new understanding of how our power can be converged, and how much of that is about really, addressing the needs, asking the right questions, asking, not settling for status quo, that what is given, what is already there, and we embrace the unknown, the complex realities that we live in, and how we can always, sort of as actors, as active actors, embrace the ambiguity, the complexity, and the changes that are happening around us in a more progressive way, in a more active way than reactive way, and really transform our self-limiting mindset about resources and resourcing, especially the so-called scarcity mentality that is prevalent. A provocateur is a synthesizer. I'm very quick with this now, because I've seen, like, in sciences and technology and education and policy, there are many good things happening. But as a provocateur, I think the most important contribution is to look at all these interstices, and see what are the gaps, what are things that are falling apart, falling between this, and how we can meet the gaps, meet the unaddressed needs, unmet needs, filling gaps in thinking and practice, and maybe new models of working, and then support breakthrough, because that's important. If there's a breakthrough, then people are, we're gonna hang on to it, and we'll support it more. So we create breakthroughs more than being obsessed with success. And it's embodied. We talk about mental health for a few years after the pandemic now, and it's still going on, the mental health focus. But aside from the health, my book is all about the power of legacy, and how we start with at a very, very young age. The concept of legacy, the concept of the yeah, and the concept of creating uh, contributions at any point of your life, at any journey, at any given journey, again, even career journey of your life. And it speaks about your lifelong aspirations for your community and lifelong aspirations for yourself, being an impact leader. Questions? I know it's a lot and it's a lot to unpack, but if you have any questions, let me know. Just just surface level reaction, thoughts. Does it If you don't have a question for me, I have a question for for you. Maybe that's a good start. So what do you think about his approach, what you're prone to sharing, if ever it if it sparks your interest and curiosity, and how does it relate to your own leadership style? Is it something, because it's something that you can add on to your toolbox, not debunk what you already have, what is growing, what is being nurtured there in terms of your own literature perspective, but as an more of an addition to the toolbox that you're already using. So how does it relate to your own leadership style based on your community context and needs? Questions, comments, reactions so far? Okay. Oh yeah, that's Robin. Yeah, oh yes,
I was just
Amy.
gonna say,
You
okay,
can
perfect.
unmute.
Um, I was just gonna really share that I think you just gave words to what I've been trying to define is the way I want to approach leadership. That the word of provocateur, it's like that. I've described it before as like polite disruption. Um,
Yes,
but yeah, that provocateur piece, I really like it. I like the way you've reframed it. So thank you for that. I really appreciate that.
thank you. Cause yeah, I've been in the sector for almost 2 decades now, and it seems to me that there's this really missing piece in our own, leadership framework as actors and as agents of change. And I felt like, y- yeah, this really fits perfectly, because I've seen many movements and networks and organizations trying their best, but they're doing the same thing, and they're not asking the right questions. They're not really, making a provocation within that really disrupts all thinking and challenges us individually, collectively, and as a movement to really step up and say, like, hey, we also need to, to sort of like practice hygiene amongst ourselves in terms of that, and that understanding is really important. Okay, Molly says a good reminder that hard conversations challenging the status quo can be an effective leadership tool, especially in the work of social impact. Yes, I think I've been a conformist for a long time when I was young, but then conformism doesn't lead you to the results. It just leads you down the rabbit hole. And I've seen that with, I work with the UN, I work with multilateral institutions before, and you look at the aid, the dynamics of aid and how until now it's being debated about how much aid do really need in the developing countries and how much localization and local empowerment we should uphold. It's still that debate, but I'm coming from that era and that generation where conformism actually doesn't it has some unintended bad consequences, I would say. And it's also in my book when I discuss all of those consequences, that sometimes unintended, harmful, unexpected, and sometimes ambiguous consequences, which we all have to contend with when we're doing some of the social impact work in our communities. We always have to contend with those. Yes. Anything else? So far, so good. Okay. Would you like me to proceed? Just give a thumbs up. Yes, yes. Okay. Sir. While you're marinating, I like the word marinate because I'm a home cook. When you're marinating all that information and some insights, it can take 24 hours to marinate a good meat. But for you, I'll give you a couple of, days to really to hopefully that sinks in and you can take something out of this conversation. Next. So what is this, Maiden? Okay, you're giving us a new, maybe a new word, a new phrase, a new sort of a flavor to our leadership understanding. Great, but what does it mean practically? So we're now going to the practical aspects of the Provocateur-Leadership approach, and hopefully it stimulates some new thinking. So it covers 10 principles, but it's within the 5 P's. So it's passion, purpose, provision, practice, and paradigm. So first is passion. So the 5 P's are the elements to the provocateur leadership approach, which is if you look at the 10 principles, they're all around innovation. They're about accountability and the piece about community. I'm very, very focused on community. And this, I also wrote a piece in my Substack on the future is community, because I think the future, whatever that is, we're in the AI, robotic, machine learning kind of culture, future. I would say it's the community. It's the community. The community is the future, and I'm holding on to that. Aside from that, let's look at the 5 P's. So passion, purpose, provision, practice, and paradigm. There's one thing that you can come out of this, I want you to have this in mind, the 5 P's. So what is passion? Well, you know what passion is, what drives you to do more, to excel, to stay even in the context of hardship or struggles or problems. That is the fuel, the fire that burns within. That's your passion. My question to you is, what drives your leadership in your community? What drives that? What is the passion? What is the fuel that drives that leadership in your community? Your leadership in your community. Purpose is your, I would say these are the values that underpin your leadership. What is really the purpose of why you're doing this? Whether it's a career, it's a vocation, it's a lifelong pursuit, it's your deepest convictions about the world and about yourself and about how your change dynamic, your change effort. So what is this? It's the arrow. The arrow is the arrow in a skilled, I would say, a bow person, right? They were as a skilled athlete can can the can create that effect, that large impact. So what is your purpose? What underpins those your leadership? What values underpin it? What are your core beliefs and deepest held convictions about about that made you stand and say, this is where I belong. This is my sector. This is my work. This is my lifelong pursuit. I will be here for my community. What does that look like in terms of your purpose? Third is your provision. You're not an idealist. You can, you know, you're looking at assets, you're looking at resources, how you can mobilize, how you can put together, because the 5 Ps is not about just ideation. It's not about idealism. It's about impact. It's about change making. It's about real, tangible change. So provision is very important. Fourth is practice. This is the day-to-day slog. This is the day-to-day discipline, practice, hard work. This is your how you refine your conviction is through your practice. It's your commitment. How far will you go? How long will you stay? Under duress, under hardship, under challenge. This is your practice. They will set you apart from those who are wannabes in the field who just wanted to do it, for a short time. And when they feel the heat, they're out. So you're not that person. So practice is important in that sense that there is that continuity, consistency, and longevity to what you're doing. And the last is paradigm, which is the basic one. Perspective. What do you believe it to be? I would question this because a lot of the rules and values and norms of society is based on the belief system of that society. If you change the mindset of people and the communities, then things happen right away. The beliefs would change the norms would change the behaviors of people, and the behaviors of people will change the policies, or other way around. Sometimes policies are the last to change because, hey, governments are that, they're that slow, but people change faster, and then policies change and rules change, and how we practice our day-to-day lives change because of those paradigms, those mindsets that have been changed. So if you look at that from that perspective, paradigm is what I've been talking about: transformational, grounded, contextual, synthesizer, facilitation role, and being a catalyst. These are paradigm shifts, and the provocateur is all about that, in essence, all that. So where are you? My question to you, using the 5 Ps: passion, purpose, provision, paradigm. Which one do you find easy, and which ones are the most challenging dimension to cultivate? Why? Where are you in this stage of these elements right now? Just to share, you wouldn't have the same kind of purpose when you're, in your 20s. When you're in the 60s or 50s, you have totally different purpose. You are already in the giving stage. You are mentoring people. You are leading in a very different way. And also your understanding of paradigm have already shifted. There's a lot of shifts that have happened in the course of your career, maybe, or in your lifetime. And that also would have changed. I would say this is an evolving piece, evolving 5 Ps in your life that you need to look at regularly, consistently in the course of your time, and say, have my passion changed? Um, I want to go back to my first love. If this is your first love, you want to go back to your first love and revisit it. And why the hell in the first place did you want to be in this sector doing all these things that you're doing right now? You have to go back and revisit that. Is it the same thing? Is it the same flame that burns? And was there a sudden change to it? And where am I now in my life? What and why that's occurring? You may have to ask that. Purpose. Have my purpose shifted? And where am I going now in the course of, and that change? Provision. Have my understanding of the material resources of the world and my society have changed too, given the fact that I know now that I can innovate, I can be creative, I can practice ingenuity, and there's a lot of resourcing that happens when we all just go together and work together on one purpose goal. And there's strategies and tactics and all of that. There's no absence of tactical innovation right now in the field. Even practice, am I doing the work yet? Am I really putting excellence yet? Or have my performance lagged in the couple of years as a professional? You may have to look at that in the change, in the social change sector. Am I getting to the leadership role that I want? Is it really the right one for me? Or would I be good at mentoring, leading from behind, working in the background and all of that stuff? And I think it's important to also, to review and reflect on your own practice. I do that as a business owner. That's because that's what we do. We look at the bottom lines, we look at the figures, we look at the data points, you know, laughing, staring at it in the face and say, hey, I need to deal with this because this is evidence. This is what it says. This is what the market says. Market says. That's what we do as business owners. And as social change agent, we need to also do that. Look at ourselves in the mirror and say, am I excelling? Am I still in that excellent stage of my performance? Where is it that I need some changes? Where it is I need to improve? What can I do to share my learning and be more innovative that way? Democratize innovation by sharing your knowledge and your transferring that knowledge and paradigm. Have my perspectives been changed in the course of 5 years, 10 years, 15 years of working in the field? What have made me different now? What have thought about that didn't work, and what can I think about now in terms of my leadership style and my understanding of myself as a leader. So again, grounded leadership reflection. Um, let's talk about Let's give it a few minutes to think about that in your own way. And if you want to share reaction, response, uh, conversation, ideas, let me know. Okay, nice. Molly said, I find the paradigm shifts the most challenging at this stage in my career. Um, Molly, would you like to share about that? Because maybe it's not just your own journey, somebody else is feeling that way too, and what you can enlighten people about, maybe, it makes sense to you. It could make sense to other people as well in this room. Would you like to share that? Why is it at this point in the stage in your life and career? Sure. Okay. You can unmute.
Oh yeah, I guess I could do that too, instead of typing. Um,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think where my head was at when I was saying that was like, there's like, as we all know, there's just so much happening like globally right now and for our companies, right?
Yeah.
So like from what I see and where I work, like there's a lot of fear about change. So it feels like harder
Mm-hmm.
to introduce maybe those like shifts that maybe like five or more years ago people would have felt a little bit more open to from what I saw.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's where it felt, yeah, like creating those paradigm shifts just feels, I don't know, in some places maybe actually it does feel, maybe it's the division of like some people really want to see that shift and some people really don't. And that's maybe where I'm getting
That's
stuck,
right.
feeling like the challenge and the push
Mm-hmm.
and the
That's
innovation to
right.
kind of make those shifts. Yeah. Does that make sense?
That's Yes, yes, Molly. That's great. Yeah, yeah. You always have those who are anti-change and those who are pro-change. As as Nassim Taleb said in his book Fragility, Anti-Fragile, actually. In terms of change, how we approach change is we have to there's no it's inevitable. We have to embrace change because we need to be anti-fragile. And anti-fragile is not being not fragile. Anti-fragile is like putting yourself in the position where you are under stress and under pressure, and that creates that strength and that sort of like the vitality that will help you withstand the complexity of the times. And I think that as far as how we should, assume that position, because saying that, I refuse to change, I don't want change, I oppose it, I resist it, it's all fear-based. And I've discussed that in my previous last year in my PowerPoint presentation on change making. And I believe that we are on the cusp of so many changes that people are so overwhelmed and under the feelings of fear and being paralyzed as to how they can move forward. And I think as provocateur leaders, our first contribution is define what's ambiguous, define the uncertainty, define what's going on. Sense making, as you would all know, is really about that at first, and then moving on towards acceptance and realization that, hey, it's not that bad after all. Come on, let's get our act together and do something about it. Amy said, at this stage, I'm finding it difficult to cultivate and sustain provision and practice, less wrestling with competing priorities of daily life. Awesome. I mean, I think it's not just, I think this is a generalized life situation that all of us are facing, especially after the pandemic. We're coming out just, as bruised and as affected as in that whole saga in our lives, as a society. And now we're trying coming to terms with what now, right? What's now, what's up in the air, and how we can collectively assume a position of, asking, taking more wisdom out of it, and just saying like what I can do to have a more, um, I would say, peaceful and more calm and more collected existence at this point in our lives, when everything has been so disruptive, and it's just changing everything that we hold to be, good 5 years ago, or maybe 2 years ago, and now it's no longer the case. Yeah. Yes. Yes. Great. Any other points here? Yes. Any other points? Should I move on? Yes. Give a thumbs up. Okay, so we're talking about the last stage of this conversation about community renewal and emergence. I liken it to a seed. From a seed, you start, you have, birth, growing pains, the start of emergence, is the start of understanding who you are and what your placement is, position it in the world, and how it, you and the world come together and interact and bring forth all of results, all of the, the abundance that it is that surrounds you. And then later on, there is growth, there is stability, there is understanding of impact and clearance in terms of identity and values formation and all of that great stuff. And then leading to a decline, which is a life, this is a life cycle in itself. And if you look at the leadership in your community renewal, your community reemergence, your community thriving, not just surviving, you will have, obviously identifying some of these aspects and stages as well, and the in-betweens, because this is not just, and everything is in flux. We can't put you in a box and say you're in this, and maybe not, maybe not. So this is a influx kind of a framework right now that we're building with you. And decline could be in many stages. Jim Collins talks about 5 stages of decline: hubris, because of past success; number 2, overreach, overexposure, overexpansion. We call it scope creep in our world, scope creep, yeah. And third, lack of understanding of peril and risks. Number 4, trying to salvage with, patchwork of changes, not major transformational change. And last, leading to obsolescence, decay, and irrelevance. That's the 5 stages of decline. We're not going to the decline stage because I understand that we can renew. We can always renew every step of the way. We can always reemerge at a certain point. And I've written in my book, goodbyes are not always forever. The farewells when you're doing a community partnership and it's time to go, you can transition in many different ways wherein you uphold the relationship, you continue in a different way, in a different setup, a different paradigm, a different dynamics, and still continue the relationship and build the connection and build the knowledge transfer and build the capacity and all this wonderful stuff for the community. So I believe that we're not focusing on decline right now, but I believe that there are signs of decline that you can arrest right away. You can avert that. You can avert the trend and the trajectory of decline right now if you choose to, based on the context that you as a provocateur leader can do in small ways and in small action steps. So I want you right now to think about again marinating where when it feels like marinate, where are you in the spectrum, the growth spectrum? Are you in the birth stage? Are you still in the stabilizing, growing, putting this stuff together, putting systems in place, getting partners together, marshaling resources, creating avenues for collaboration, um, challenging the challenging the status quo, or you are in the discomfort stage, the pains, growing pains, um, sometimes paralysis, getting to see what you can do even in the midst of these trying times. What issues do you face right now that creates a sort of a stumbling block? Like there's Molly was saying, like it's an obstacle. No, like Molly was saying a while ago, if I'm correct, Molly, you're talking about people where people are stuck, right? The response to change. That's where a lot of people are stuck in that climate of fear, right? So what issues are you facing that's more like that you're stuck? It's a stuck issue, I would say. I think I wrote that one time in my blog about a stuck issue in an organizational change dynamic. And using the 5 Ps, if ever there is some sort of a usefulness to that, I won't impose, I won't force it. What insights can you draw based on your current challenges related to community regeneration? Because we want communities to continue thriving with or without you. You're not the savior, you're not the messiah of this. So you're facilitating the forces of good, the forces of abundance and renewal to this community, and make sure that it stays like that and becomes more vibrant with or without you. Hopefully that makes sense. So, uh, how are we for time, Chelsea?
We have about 8 more minutes in my
Okay,
short room and
so
in the back.
let's marinate on this. I like the silence. I fully respect the silence. I would like to be silent when I get these kinds of questions too. And yeah, you can be silent for this time, and then we wrap up in a few minutes. You can also connect through chat. Awesome. So yeah, Amy saying about went through the decline and then sort of a rebirth. Absolutely, absolutely. That's the living systems, right? They suddenly you think it's dying. I saw my plant and my garden bed. I thought it's dying. It's really dying. Everything, the manifestations, but I haven't seen the roots. We still have the roots, and nobody sees the roots, and the roots are still alive. They are alive. And then the next week, it's I saw little sprouts coming in. Absolutely, absolutely. And that's the I would say that that's the wisdom of nature. That's the wisdom of nature telling us that, hey, that's you're not a failure. This is not a failure project yet. You can avert it, you can resurrect it, we can renew it anytime in the stage we're in. Amy, would you be able to give us more information about how did you work out the, from the decline phase to the rebirthing phase, and what were the major thinking perspective shifts in thinking that made that happen in the first place, and what's the one major practice point? What is the practice that made it, made it work, if you can?
Yeah, absolutely. I I joined the board during COVID. So we're
Mm,
in a phase of adaptation because a lot of the events that we had previously hosted were all in person, so we had to really adapt to
yeah.
that. A lot of people that had been in the organization had been there for almost a decade, and there's definitely a high level of burnout. Um,
Mm,
and um, Sadly, our leader at the time became very ill and passed away.
oh, wow.
So I think, and I think, and then I kind of inherited the leadership role within the organization. Um,
Yeah.
and it was definitely difficult because I felt like definitely a bit of an imposter.
Yeah.
And but I came back to that passion piece, like why am I doing this? And
Yeah.
doing it because I feel like this is something that's important to our community. Um, and I think one of the things that kept it going has been just one, that the piece that you were kind of speaking to, which is allowing for rest and allowing for the grief of allowing that decline piece to happen, and
Yeah.
acknowledging that within the community as well. And then just slowly rebuilding and speaking to the things that I see within the community, where I think there are some things that I think are still very valuable, and start rebuilding on that. And since then, we've rebuilt a larger board, and we're now starting to see some of that uptick of higher engagement,
Hmm.
people that used to be involved coming back. But it's slow, and I think patience was one of the bigger things. Like, it's not instant all better. It's something that I really,
Yeah.
like, it's been almost 3 years now that we're just slowly plugging away at it and rebuilding, and just trying to have some type of consistency, but also allowing for a lot of that rest, because it's exhausting. Because it's in addition,
It
because I'm a
is.
volunteer board, it's exhausting and it's emotionally taxing because it's something you're really
Mm,
passionate about. And it's
yeah.
also, when you don't see the reaction you hope for, it takes a toll, whether you want it to or not. Like, it's so keeping that positive outlook, it's not always possible, but coming back to it, I think, is something. So that patience piece and coming back to why you're doing it was a big piece for me to help keep it going. If that, yeah, yeah.
Well, thank you very much, Amy. That sort of rounded up this conversation because you presented, the the behind the scenes, the behind the scenes emotions and feelings and hardships and the struggles of trying to, avert the decline and slowly rebuilding with patience, with perseverance, with all the, the good feelings and the positive things that you put together to make it work. So yeah, Amy, congratulations. That wasn't and it's still an ongoing progress, right? It's an ongoing project, but I am telling you that that's how you can do it. That's absolutely you can do it. And in some cases, you're not yet out of the hook in terms of safety, but you're on the way. You are building the foundations of a better community right there, and that's very important. So I recognize that. I absolutely appreciate you sharing this lesson for all of us.
Thank you.
So I think, yeah, thank you. So, again, after marinating, I want you to proceed to action, but in your own time, not in this time because we don't have a lot of time right now. But I want you to list down like just 2 action points to recommit to renewal, to re-energize, to always build back better out of maybe out of despair, decay, grief or fear, where you're stuck, issues where you're stuck, proceed to, doing something, even small steps to doing that. So thank you very much. I have resources in my website and my Substack. I write about this almost weekly about this issue, strategy, change, leadership. These are my passions. And I have the book is 20% ebook. We have a discount for that too. And yeah, just thank you. Thank you for doing this with me. I like your silence. Silence means you're, marinating on it. And I believe that